Okay, today is Wednesday, March 23rd. This is CAD 212. Today in class, we're going to go over the following information in Revit. We touched on underlay views last class, so we'll talk about that a little bit again today. And with you already having your floor plan laid out, we're going to start adding your stairs. So we're going to talk about that, how that works. Once we lay in stairs, you'll need to cut an opening in your ceiling and your floor. We've touched on this a little bit. It's similar to how we manipulated floors last project. So we'll follow up on that again. And then, as you noticed, when you were laying in your second floor and your third floor and your walls, that some of the wall and ceiling heights look a little bit odd. So we'll talk about how to manipulate those and how to change the heights on those. That's everything we'll go over in class today. For then you'll just go ahead and continue with your renovation work, work on all your floor plans on your 3 floors. And all that work should take into consideration your design aspects. I am looking for you to change the exterior of the house, the building from what you have now. And hopefully by Monday, I'll be able to show you some previous examples of students and how they took this basic, kind of plain building and turned it into something really kind of interesting. So we'll take a look at some of that next week as well. So let's go ahead and jump into today's lecture about underlays and views. So I've picked out someone's project to work on here, just as an example. Let's take a look at that real quick. So on this one, let's even put it in realistic. So we have a very plain looking building here. What I'd like to do is see this turned into something a little bit more interesting. And as we progress through the class, we'll learn how to do that. Let's take a look at their level 1. All right. That looks good on level 1. What I would suggest is hiding your dimensions. You go to visibility graphics, go to annotation categories, and go to dimensions. And if you just uncheck that, it's just going to make it a lot cleaner for you to work on this building. So here we have our first floor. As we worked on the last time, we did add our second and third floor. Let me add that back onto this one. So we're all going to use the wood joist 10-inch wood finish floor for our second floor. And my green check mark. All right. I'll go to 3D. Let's see what I did. All right. All these ceilings should be done by per room. So this is one large ceiling. Let's make sure that that's done by room. So I'm just going to delete that and go over that. And let me hide this. And there's my finished floor. And I need to move that up to level 2. Here we go. Let me hide this for a second also while I put some ceilings back in. And we'll go to the ceiling tool. And it should be automatic ceiling. So when you go over the individual rooms, they should just pop in. I saw a couple people also used having ceilings running across the entire thing, but they should populate by room. Takes into consideration the breaks. Those ceilings are not actually going to run through this wall or on top of this wall. So you need to make sure that the ceiling is per room. Okay. Let's jump back to 3D. Let's turn everything back on. Let's turn this back to consistent color. All right, so this is one of the things that we're looking at. Actually, I jumped ahead in the class plan, so jumping down to manipulating constraints, walls and ceiling heights, just because it's so obvious from this view. But this is what we want to take a look at when we're looking at that. Notice how this wall, actually all of these walls are intersecting our floor. So that's not actually going to happen. Our floor will actually lay on top of our walls, and the walls will butt up against this the ceiling part here. So a couple things we need to do to adjust that. We need to bring the ceiling so it's flush against the floor above, and then we also need to bring these walls so they're flush against the bottom of this floor here. So we're just going to manipulate the height constraints on these. So for this one, I'm just going to pick this this ceiling, and I'm going to change that from 8 foot to 9 foot and see where that brings me. And actually that works out really well. For this one, we're using the acoustical ceiling tile. Acoustical ceiling tile a lot of times has a plenum, which does leave that break, but we want to have this flush for this particular class. So let's turn this up like this so we can see how that looks this way. So we want to look at something that looks like this, so the ceiling is flush against that floor. So we can do them all at the same time as well. So if we select this ceiling and we right click, whoops, select this ceiling, right click, go to select all instances, and we'll do an entire project. And then we can change that ceiling height to 9 feet. And you notice it moved all those ceiling heights at the same time to 9 feet. Now we're going to do a similar thing with the walls. Notice how these walls intersect that second floor. So I'm going to grab that wall. And notice its height is unconnected at 10 feet. Well, let me drop this down to 9 feet and see where that leaves me. And apply. And I actually have a tiny little gap right there. So let me make that 9 foot 1 inch. 9 foot 2 inches. And there we have something where the walls are actually supporting the this floor above it, and it's not intersecting. So you just want to do that with all of these floors as well. Let's take this one over here. All the rest of the floors are intersecting as well. Let's take it from this view so you can see how all that works. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to select all instances. Notice how it selects all those interior walls at once. I'm going to change this height to 9 space 2 and hit apply. And that fixes all those walls at the same time. So it's really easy to move the constraints of those of their location and things like that. You just have a much more finished and polished looking building at this point. How things are coming together really nicely. Okay. Any questions about how to manipulate walls or ceilings before we move on? Okay. Let's jump back to, well, we'll talk about underlay briefly, and then also stairs. We did talk about underlay before, but stairs is going to be the big bulk of our lecture here. So let's jump back to Revit, and let's go to a level 1 view. This is where we talked about if we were in level 2, how you could see the floor below. And remember, in order to turn off that view below, you're going to go to the underlay. And if you don't want to see floor 1, you'll just put that on none. And this is what we'll review this a few times just by the, because you're going to want to do this once we put these in sheets. This is the roof right now. You can see that because if you jump to elevation view, it's coming in right at level 2 at this top part, so it's kind of intersecting there. That's not as big a problem, especially once we raise this. If we put in another level, and make that roof, attach that to level 3. And you should actually have a level 4 in here as well. But it's just showing you this one example. Now, if we go back to level 1 floor plan and level 2 floor plan, we do not see that roof. Let's see, and if we go to level 3, you'll still see that same view, but we can go ahead and hide that when you need to draw on there. So back to level 1. All right, so stairs. Stairs are kind of fun, but honestly, they can be a little frustrating at times. So what I'd like to do is I'm just going to open up a new project. And I suggest you do the same thing before you start kind of putting the stairs in your actual final model. Just to kind of play around with them. And it doesn't affect your current drawing, but stairs are kind of fun. So in order to create stairs, we want to go to our architecture tab, our circulation panel, and the stair tool. So when we click on the stair tool, if you look over here, it's automatically going to do a run, which means the entire run of the staircase from bottom to top. We have a bunch of different types of runs. You can do straight, you can do full spiral, you can do center end spiral, an L shape, and a U shape. So all these are kind of preset, and then we can create one with our own landing. So we're going to do all of those. So let's just kind of play with this to begin with. So it automatically defaults to your straight run stairs. And it's going to start with the location line. And that means where the staircase is going to start from. So if I click on here, zoom in some, notice that location line is the center of the stairs. And I just run all the way through until the end. And that gives me, it automatically calculates the size of the stairs, the depth of the stairs. So you have your rise over run of each individual stair, and then it ends where you need it to as far as how it's constrained to the second floor. So here you can see on this the staircase, it's on base level 1, and it runs to base level 2, which is desired height 10 feet. So just to run a regular staircase, it's pretty easy. You just run it like that, and then we get a 3D, and you can see you've got a nice staircase there. Let's put it in better perspective by adding a wall and how that would run against a wall. Let's delete that. So I'll just draw any wall in there. And we'll go back to stair tool. And this is where that center line comes into consideration, where you're going to think about it. Because if you just go ahead and start drawing your stair, it's going to attach from the center, which is not really helpful when you're trying to have it flush against a wall. It is good if you're doing it like kind of centered in a space, but if you're having it run against a wall, it's not super convenient. So how do we correct that? So we'll take that location line, and depending on which way you want to run the stairs, if you want it left or right, and it runs from always bottom to top, you can connect it like that. And if you wanted to do another staircase and have a right run, you can connect it like that. Let's go to 3D and see what happened with all that fun stuff. So notice, well, it's not really convenient here because there's a wall between it, but since we brought these staircases in at the same location to start, they connected themselves with a landing, which is very convenient if this wall wasn't here. We can always cut a hole in the wall. You can do like a little walkthrough there and things like that. But there we have our staircase in place. Let's do a couple other staircases so you can see how those work. Let's go back to level 1. For our spiral staircase, everything's going to be set in place just like before. Size of the stairs and the height, you can arrange that. This has failed to generate landing. That's okay, we don't have a landing in place. And let's hit our green check mark and see how those work out. I have a bunch of staircases built up one time, so that kind of throws everything off a little bit. Let's jump to 3D. Oh, wrong 3D. There we go. So you can see how that is not supposed to be up in the air like that. That's funny. All right, let's go back to level 1. It's probably because I drew that in 3D. Let's delete that. All right, so let's do a couple more staircases. We'll do stairs here. Let's do that one again. And then we'll hit the green check mark. We'll do them one at a time this time since it works out a little better. And you have a really interesting look on these staircases. Let's go to the next one. Do that over here. So you can see the slight differences on these curved staircases. Curved ones are a little bit harder to manipulate just because of that tight spiral, but the more you practice it, the easier it gets. And then the last two just kind of come in as already shaped in the space that you want. We've got our L-shaped And then we'll just throw in our U-shaped as well. So they already come pre-sized. One of the shortcomings, especially in a commercial or industrial setting with these type of stairs, is notice that the stairs, the steps are not necessarily uniform. These type of steps can be very unwieldy when it comes to actually navigating those, especially in a large situation such as a school or something. So you always want to make sure, you don't usually see this in a commercial building. This is more like residential. What we're typically going to use in a commercial building is when we create our staircase, and then we create our landing itself, and then you'll have a better looking staircase. So we're going to create something that looks like this, but you're going to have something that's actually within code for a commercial building. So let's do that. And this is how we're going to create the staircase for our actual project. I just wanted to show you these so you can kind of play with them and just get a better idea how they work and stuff. But let's go ahead and go to the staircase that we're going to use. And this one you're actually going to draw in like 2 parts. Here we have the width of the staircase. We can change that to 4 feet. And notice it does have an automatic landing, so it'll create that. So this one has 18 risers. So when I get halfway, that's 9. So I'm going to click. And then I'm going to move the location of my second part of my staircase. And I just move that over to the right, and I'm going to click again, and I'll draw that in and bring that all the way to the end. And notice that automatically adds my landing. Now when I hit my green check mark and I go to 3D, I think I drew it in 3D, so that's never a good idea. It may end up being elevated. Oh no, it did it correctly this time. Okay, good. Yeah, you never want to draw stairs in 3D because it could give you a weird view, just like it had the other one kind of like flying in the air. But yeah, there's our landing staircase right there with the built-in landing. So sometimes it takes just a little practice to get that done, so everything shows up correctly. That's why I suggest always starting like with another template, another project, just so you can kind of practice the staircase and not get frustrated trying to fit it into the space that you have for the first one, and then you can go back to the other drawing and get everything inserted from there. So let's do that next. So now that we know how to draw, this particular staircase is the one we're going to use. Let's use it in our actual project. And I got somebody